Just to get caught up here with everybody, I just want to make sure that you're aware that in the coming weeks, we've got a couple of other people coming in. Primarily, Donna Waxman will be coming in on October the 15th, doing what she calls refraction photography or dewdrop photography. And that's quite interesting what she can do with water. There's a whole bunch of things that she does, not only photographing dewdrops like this that become a lens for the background, but also she will show you drops into water in different colors and so on. So it's quite a fascinating art form, and she'll be happy to talk to you all about that. We will have tonight, of course, Teri Gilman talking about her adventures in Madagascar. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And I'm sure Teri, in her introduction, will tell you a lot more about what she's going to be presenting. Okay, so in the future, we're going to be having somebody coming in on underwater photography as well as drone photography. So we're really looking forward to that. I'm just going to start something here that I start putting in. Fantastic. Okay. Now, tonight, I'm very happy to introduce to you an associate of mine, longtime friend. And actually, when I first opened my studio, um, Teri was one of the first people that I worked with. And she really helped me build the studio. The unfortunate situation was that she didn't stay. She went back to her homeland down to the United States, California, where she started a very successful business she'll tell you all about. All right. So, without any further ado, let me introduce Teri. There she is. And hi, Teri. Nice to see you here.
Hi.
Uh, and uh, I gave you a very brief introduction there, but I know that you're going to talk a little bit more about uh, what you have done and some of the things that you've accomplished, including awards that you've achieved in your time in photography. So, without any further ado, I'm going to let you launch into it unless you have anything to say to the people that are here.
No, just good evening, and thank you, Jorj, for allowing me to share my Madagascar journey. And thank you, everyone, all for joining me on this chat. I'm ready to
Fantastic.
go.
Here we go.
Okay. First, I'd like to share a bit about my background. I'm a graduate of UCLA with a degree in design from the School of Fine Arts. As Jorj had mentioned, Jorj gave me my start, and I worked with Jorj for several years prior to opening up my business in 1978. I've been a professional photographer for 50 years. And some of the things I've done is I was invited by the Chinese government as part of a group of select media professionals to provide some international exposure to less visited areas of China. My work has appeared in People magazine, the opening of Hallmark's Hall of Fame, Growing Up, Growing Older, ads for the Los Angeles Summer Olympics, and PR for some of Hollywood's well-known celebrities. I've been vice president and board member of ASMP, Los Angeles chapter. I specialized in working on location, and I'm probably best known for my corporate image work. Some of my clients are, you can see here, this is a partial list of IBM, McDonald's, Bank of America, AT&T. I've been fortunate to be recognized by my peers in the industry. And a few of my awards are Kodak Award for Photographic Excellence from the International Society of Public Relations, the International Society of Business Communicators, and the New York Film and Television Society. The bedrock upon which I built my career and which has underpinned my success was what I call my philosophical tripod. Now, if I was speaking to a different kind of group, I'd probably be referring to this as my pillars of success. But since I'm speaking to photographers, I thought a tripod would be more appropriate. And the three legs of my philosophical tripod are: one, understanding the technical aspects of photography so completely that they're part of your photographic DNA. Two, thoroughly understanding all of your equipment, its capabilities and its limitations. And three, which is last, but it is certainly not least, it is continually honing your unique ability to see. Now, in 1998, my husband, Reg, and I closed our businesses and we set sail on our schooner, Blue Topaz. We wanted to see the world. We wanted to travel, and we wanted to be more than just tourists. Now, while Blue Topaz was our home, we did travel by other means. And we traveled for 18 years. Now, in this presentation, I'm going to share with you our trip to Madagascar. We wanted to go to Madagascar because it has some of the most unique animal and plant life on the planet that exists nowhere else. And it's also a place where if you step off the tourist track, you literally step back in time. And there are not many places in the world where you can do that. Now, our trip, it was one trip, but it was actually two journeys. The first was 2 months of travel in a remarkable country. And the second was a very personal photographic journey. It put a real fine point to the philosophical tripod on which I've built my photographic career. You see, it's one thing to understand something intellectually, and it's quite another to understand it viscerally. And my photographic journey in Madagascar was a stark reminder of just how important that these concepts are. So, Manaon and Tongasoa, which is hello and welcome in Malagasy. And there's no better image to start this talk off with than an image of the baobabs. This, in fact, is called the Avenue of the Baobabs. And you will find them throughout the country. In fact, Madagascar is the motherlode of baobabs. 6 of the 8 species exist only in Madagascar, and they are uniquely suited to survive in inhospitable dry conditions because the trees are literally a giant receptacle for water. And the baobabs are also a recognizable emblem of the country. Now, when I worked working in a large photographic market like Los Angeles, I was able to specialize as a location photographer. I traveled with 6 Rode cases filled with grip and lighting equipment, cases for my Hasselblads and Nikons, and an assistant. When I closed my business and we moved aboard our schooner, my camera equipment shrank way down. And by the time we went to Madagascar, this is what I traveled with. I had moved to digital with a Canon EOS 5D and 2 zoom lenses, a 2.8 16-35 and a 2.8 70-200, and a Canon G6, which I had purchased used off eBay, primarily because I got the batteries, which I could use in my EOS. And the camera, it was just a bonus. Now, this This was the last photo taken with my EOS 5D. At the end of our first week, I was faced with a catastrophic equipment failure. With my Canon EOS, I started noticing that the focusing was not working correctly. And when I took the lens off the camera, the mirror assembly literally fell out. There was no possible way to have it repaired in Madagascar. There was no way to buy another body. And a call to the Canon repair facility in Toronto assured me that there was no quick MacGyver fix. So now I was left without all the advantages I had become accustomed to. What I had now was my Canon G6 with a painfully slow processor, a very slow, moderate zoom, and an LCD monitor that was virtually ineffective in the daylight. But most importantly, what I did have was my philosophical tripod. I had thoroughly run the G6 through its paces prior to going on this trip. And so I understood fully what its capabilities and especially what its limitations were. So with my backup camera in hand, I set off to tell my Madagascar story. A story that in fact produced some of my most memorable images. So from here on, all the photographs you see were taken with my G6. And by the way, that lemur on my shoulder is a wild lemur. It wasn't planned. Reg was taking a picture of me, and before I knew it, this lemur had jumped on my shoulder and hung around for a bit. I didn't have anything it wanted, and then it left. So next, I would like to give you a brief introduction to Madagascar. The island lies about 250 miles off the east coast of Africa. The Mozambique Channel is on its west coast and the Indian Ocean on its east. It is the oldest island on Earth. It is the fourth largest island in the world. It is larger than England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales combined. It's known as the Great Red Island, predominantly due to its red soil, as you will see in the coming photographs. It's a former French colony, and the languages spoken are Malagasy and French. Now, Madagascar is a biodiversity hotspot. And what do I mean by biodiversity hotspot? Biodiversity hotspots cover less than 1% of the Earth's surface, yet they are home to well over half of its plant and animal species. And as hotspots go, Madagascar is probably one of the hottest. It has over 100,000 types of invertebrates. It has at least 350 species of frogs. It has around 370 types of reptiles. And it has 8 whole plant families that exist only in Madagascar. It has at least 1,000 orchid species, 5 families of birds, and 200 different mammals, which include lemurs. Now, lemurs, it seems like in North America that Madagascar is primarily known because of a Disney animated feature of the same name. And that same feature did introduce a lot of folks to lemurs. The lemurs are endemic to Madagascar, and there are well over 100 species. You know, lemurs are curious, they're intelligent, some have the intelligence of a 3-year-old. And they also have very dexterous little hands with opposing thumbs, so they are quite adept at getting into whatever they want. Now, our trip to Madagascar was 2 months. We researched and we found a local Malagasy firm based in the capital that specialized in remote location travel. So they could book our accommodations and transportation. And in our case, that included a car and a driver. Of the 8 weeks that we were in Madagascar, we spent 2 in the capital of Antananarivo, and then we left with our car and driver, and we returned 6 weeks later. Our driver, Jocelyn, specialized in driving the remote areas that we wanted to travel in, where often there were no roads. And he was well versed in navigating roads like this one. And in areas where there were no roads or signs, he knew which zebu cart path to take. Now, we crossed 7 rivers without the benefit of any bridges. And Malagasi's ferries are pontoon boats that are put together. They lay a grate over the top, and then they are powered by a 25 horsepower motor. And then the crews are often bailing these pontoons as you're crossing the rivers. Now, our driver knew who to talk to in each village to find out where the ferry was docking that day, because it really depended on the level of the river. And, this could change, miles upstream or downstream. So on this particular day, we were boarding a 3-car ferry. And the loading ramps are moved on a rail for each car to board. Now, on another day, we crossed the river and we landed on this beach where there was about a 1/4 mile of very deep sand. Jocelyn asked Reg and I to get out of the vehicle so we could lighten the load, because once he started going, he was not going to be able to stop until he got to hard ground. Now, these groups of men and boys that hung out around the ferry were hoping that we'd get stuck so they could push us out and make some cash. But needless to say, that day they didn't get any cash from us because we didn't get stuck. Now, last but certainly not least, is an experienced remote location driver can help you avoid some hidden perils. On our way to Belo-Sumer, we exited a zebu cart path onto a beach, and in front of us was a floodplain at low tide. And instead of driving straight across, our driver turned and he drove down the beach for about a 1/4 mile, and then he drove across. And once we were across, Reg asked him, he said, "Well, Jocelyn, why didn't you just cross right away and just go straight across?" And our driver just looked at us and he said, "Because car no like quicksand." So now I'd like to share a few of the places that we traveled. I know I have limited time, so I'll keep it brief, but I hope to really just show you some of the incredible geographic diversity that the island has. We're going to start with Antananarivo, which is known as Tana to the locals, the capital of Madagascar. It has brightly colored houses that are stacked up and down the hillsides. They're draped in beautiful golden and magenta bougainvillea, and it makes for a rather enchanting sight. Now, the city has about a population of 1.25 million, and it sits at an elevation of about 4,200 feet. What you're looking at here is Market Day in Tana. And the avenues and boulevards in the city, well, they have names. This particular one has 3 different names. Avenue de l'Independence, also known as Fahala Avontana, which I'm not sure I pronounced correctly, and Du 26 June 1960. Now, even though they have names, no one seems to know them. So asking directions was always a little bit confusing. Tana is a great place to get exercise because the city is built all on hills. But Madagascar is also one of the poorest countries in the world, and Tana has plenty of poverty. So even though the city has over 1 million people, there are rice paddies in the center of the city. So when walking the streets, like, you never know when you'll turn a corner and you will come face to face with a zebu. So now we're going to move south, and we're in the Central Highlands, which is Madagascar's rice bowl. It's where they grow the majority of their food. And the land is intensively cultivated. And you can see here the rice paddies, which, they are in various stages. Some are planted, some are waiting to be harvested, and they just intensively cultivate this land. There are no farming machines, no handheld mechanized devices. All of the planting you see, all of the rice paddies, this is all done by hand. And once the rice has been harvested, the zebu are brought in. They eat whatever is left over in the rice paddies, and their hooves churn up the soil in preparation for the next planting. Now, the humpbacked zebu are the Malagasy's cattle, and they nearly outnumber the number of humans on the island. They're a symbol of prosperity and status, as well as they are used as beasts of burden. And it's really not uncommon when you're traveling through the country to be greeted by a herd on the road as they take the cattle to market. A little further south, at the southern end of the Central Highlands, there's the town of around 30,000. It's in Bolivo, and it's home to Madagascar's largest cattle market. The streets are generally car-free, and transportation is generally by pus-pus, which is also known as a rickshaw. But this tough town also has a softer side. And Bolivo is the original home of the famous Malagasy Antamoro paper. It's a papyrus type of paper. It's impregnated with flowers, and then it is sold throughout the country. But like many things in Madagascar, it is made entirely by hand. Every process, from pounding the pulp to the finished product, is all done by hand, and they've been doing it this way for hundreds of years. So as we traveled, we went to many parks, national parks in Madagascar. And this is Ranomafana. Ranomafana is more than 100,000 acres of a tropical rainforest. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's considered one of the island's most important conservation areas because it literally has a treasure trove of endemic flora and fauna. It's also the fourth most visited national park in the country. And like all the parks in Madagascar, when you visit them, you must hire a local guide, which works out really well because they are all very well informed, and they are a great resource for understanding the wildlife. And our guide here, which is in the center photograph, you can see we are hiking up a trail into the rainforest. And here he warned us about the tree leeches, which is no joke. And so there was no tree hugging and certainly no leaning against any of the trees. We visited Asalo National Park, which reminded us very much of the US Southwest. It covers an area of about 315 square miles, and centuries of wind and water have sculpted these incredible ridges and rocks. But even in this very vast and very rugged land, you can find the occasional oasis, which was really nice because on the day that we were hiking there, it was very hot, and it was nice to find a cool oasis. Next, we visited a place called Belosumer. And on an island where rice paddies are planted and harvested by hand, and zebu carts are a common mode of transportation, and most meals are cooked over charcoal, we visited a village that even by these standards is considered remote. When we were planning our trip, we didn't realize just how far off, truly far off the beaten path this visit was going to take us. Belosumer is a tiny village on the west coast of Madagascar, located on the Mozambique Channel. The people of Bel-Esumir are boat builders. They build dugout canoes, which they call pirogues, sailing outriggers, and wooden cargo schooners. As sailors, this tiny seaside village held a very special place in our hearts. We designed much of and supervised the building of our own schooner. So it should come as no surprise that we made it a point to visit a place where they build schooners by hand, using no mechanized tools. They use local materials, and they use the methods that were taught them by the French over 150 years ago. So in Bel-Esumir, we were in a village with no public water system, no sewers or electricity. And when it came to sanitation, they would just let the pigs out at night to clean things up. And our accommodations, well, they were the most luxurious in town. And our thatch hut, it had no running water or electricity or toilet. It was, however, situated on a beautiful sand beach, and we were right at the inlet of the Mozambique Channel. So we did travel with our own bucket, which came in handy for late night nature calls. And every night, the restaurant would run an electrical cord to us from their generator for 3 hours so that we could charge up our electrical appliances. Each morning, we watched the local fishermen sail by on their way out to sea on the morning tide, and then they would return with their daily catch on the evening tide. It was all of the fishermen relied on wind and tide because none of these boats have engines. So Bel-Esumir, it may be off the beaten path, but it really beat a path into our hearts. We visited a park, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to say this well, but it is the Tsingy Bemahara National Park, and it is home to the world's largest stone forest. It encompasses over 375,000 acres, and it is a national park and nature preserve, and also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In Malagasy, Tsingy means where one cannot walk barefoot, and that is definitely the case. The Tsingy are made up of limestone pinnacles, some reaching up to 2,600 feet. And this is Reg, who's cresting one of these pinnacles. But I just want to remind you that the photographer had to get there first. Now, to get to our hiking in the Tsingy, we had to travel on the Molombolo River, and we had a dugout canoe. And as I dipped my fingers into the water, our guide suggested I pull them back in because the Molombolo is filled with a lot of crocodiles, and these crocs can grow up to 20 feet and over 2,200 pounds. So needless to say, he did not have to tell me twice to get my fingers out of the river. And this is the only up close and personal experience I had with a Molombolo crocodile. So at this point, we completed our brief glimpse into Madagascar. And if you'll recall, I said this was one trip, 2 journeys. Now I'd like to share with you that second journey, which was a very personal photographic one for me. So being prepared for the unexpected has stood me well over my 50 years as a photographer. With the exception of landscapes and a few slow-moving reptiles, 90% of my photographs in Madagascar had to be achieved with one shot. If I was lucky, I might get a second opportunity. So when I say that the ideas forming my philosophical tripod were made starkly clear, I really meant it. The concepts that I outlined here allowed me to overcome a catastrophic equipment failure halfway around the world and still produce some of my most memorable images. As photographers, we tell stories. And how we tell those stories is the stamp of our individual vision. For years, I was paid to tell the story of those who hired me. Now I get to tell the stories I wish to tell. I used to say, I do what I do for love and for money. Now I say, I just do it for love. And environmental portraiture has always been a love of mine because of the larger story it tells about the people and the country. I became a photographer in the era and worked in the era of film. I transitioned to digital some time ago, but I've never forgotten the discipline of getting the best shot, having only so many opportunities to do so. When I do a portrait, I'm asking to get into someone's personal space. If they're comfortable, they'll let me in. And they have to be comfortable enough to let me see who they are. And so I have to interact with them as another human being. When I was working, I would tell my assistants, image is what we sell. So we need to begin with ourselves. And that means appearance, and in a non-English speaking country, learning the words and phrases that I believe are useful. And I always travel with the translation book. And I'm sure the smiles that you see here are really the result of my mangled Malagasy. The next few images are examples of having my camera ready for any spontaneous opportunities, which sometimes meant knowing how I was going to override the camera's preferred metering well before that shot was taken. Now, the Malagasy culture is probably one of the most creative that we've ever experienced. And their creativity was evident in their use of color, their music, their language, which is very musical. Now, the particular approach that I used in photographing while we were in Madagascar, partly as a result of the type of camera that I was using, required a much more considered form of photography, for which I needed to be fully prepared to snap the shutter. I never asked anyone to move or pose for any of these images. I was just ready when the moment happened. Okay, on this one, what can I say? Kids are kids the world over. Now, in Imbalovo, I found this young lady. And as I approached her, I said, Sara Tahare. She blushed, and there was my shot. What I said to her was beautiful face. I generally only ask, can I take your photograph if the subject is carrying a weapon? So most folks respond pretty favorably when they're complimented. Cartier-Bresson introduced the idea of the decisive moment. He said, there is a creative fraction of a second when you are taking a picture. Your eye must see a composition or an expression that life itself offers you, and you must know with intuition when to click the camera. These next two images, for me, are prime examples of that. This portrait, for me, told a bigger story than just two brothers on the beach. For me, it was indicative of what his life is like and will continue to be. He's a young boy, maybe 10, and he's already doing a man's work. This next one was what I saw was a universal moment of children at play, and it transcended time and space. Now, in the rainforest of Ranamafana, I finally found the subject that who would let me photograph them as many times as I wanted to. So Misotra, thank you. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Jorj for taking a chance on me and giving me my start in photography. And thank you all for taking this journey with me. If you are interested and would like to know more, you can always check out our website. The journey is our destination.
Thank you, Teri. That was wonderful. I was totally enthralled.
Mm.
That was beautiful. Well done. And let's see. I think that okay. I've taken everything off mute here. We've had a bit of a collection on YouTube, not so much here on Zoom, but it was fascinating. Now, the thing is that if you want to see Teri's talk, you can go to my live feed on Zoom, and you can listen to it there again. And I invite you to do so, please. Teri, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Like I said, I knew that you were going on an adventure. I just didn't realize that it would not only be a photographic one, but a philosophical one. And I love that. I think that there's a lot of things that we miss when we miss out on the nuances of photography besides just the shooting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it proves that you don't need fantastic equipment to take really good photos. It's what's inside your head and your experience is really amazing photos. Fantastic.
Well, thank you, David. I've always said it's not what takes the photograph is actually like about 6 inches behind the camera.
Mm. Yeah, no, totally agree. And it's a good education on Madagascar as well.
It's a pretty remarkable country.
Yeah, yeah, quite amazing.
It is. And I think that, just to add to David's and your uh, point of view as to equipment and photographers, it always reminds me of that saying that somebody goes in and has a fantastic meal and says, "That was great. That chef must have a fantastic frying pan." And the chef
Yes.
rolls his eyes, right? Yeah, not the tool, it's the tradesperson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, thank you, Teri. And let's see, we're going to call it a night early tonight. But uh, if anybody has any questions, please, the website is posted in the description on YouTube, and I've also posted it on Facebook. So feel free to go there and peruse the work and get in touch with her if you have any questions about travel, Madagascar, equipment, whatever. I'm sure that Teri will be more than happy to help you out and answer your questions. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you again, Teri, and have a good night. So that brings me to the conclusion of this evening's adventure. And thank you for those of you who have attended, and I really appreciate it. Please don't forget to leave me a like and also um, subscribe. Right now, I think that our subscription is moving upwards, and the higher it gets, of course, the more audience we're going to receive. And I think that one of these days I'll probably be at a position where we can invite Terry back and maybe get another facet in some of the travels that she's had. Maybe even some of her commercial work and her experiences there. Who knows? That would be fantastic. At any rate, thank you for all of you who were attending, and I would like to say good night. Thank you very much.